Good evening, folks. I'm here now in Hollywood, Florida. Yes, I made it all the way down to the south part for a while. In Congressional District 23, interviewing Professor Tim Canova of Nova Southeast, who is a law professor who is going up against Debbie Wasserman Schultz for that particular congressional district. Not his first time around. This is the second time. The first time, though, was a bit rocky. Is that correct?
It's rocky for the last 34 months. Last time, this time, you don't go after a fish as big as Wasserman Schultz without it being a bit rocky, but that's okay.
Well, one of the things that we are having problems with right now is that we have too many people, too many politicians who rely heavily on money for campaigns, and it seems to control them not only during the campaign, but long after.
Yes.
And it seems that Congresswoman Schultz has taken a lot of money from various people during her campaigns and beyond. It seems to have formed her policy.
Yes, that is a correct analysis. And we saw this from the beginning of the last campaign. If you go online to opensecrets.org, you can see how any congressional candidate is raising money. And for Wasserman Schultz, over the course of her career, we're talking about millions of dollars from corporate interests. And they're some of the most predatory corporate interests. So it includes payday lenders, Wall Street banks, fossil fuel industry, private prisons, big pharma, private health insurers. So she is a drug warrior. She's for the war on drugs. She's called marijuana a gateway drug. She's taken money from some of the big pharmaceutical companies that are implicated in the opioid epidemic. And the list goes on and on, the kinds of corporate interests that she's been taking money from.
Now, I was looking at the congressional record, and I see we've gotten positive votes on various cannabis bills from like Ted Deutsch and others, but never from Congresswoman Schultz.
Her mindset is really that marijuana is a dangerous drug. She has called it a gateway drug. And I've never heard her speak up about anything positive about it. 2 years ago, when I challenged her in a Democratic primary, on the ballot that year was Amendment 2, medicinal marijuana. And for me, it was a very easy issue. I supported Amendment 2. I support making marijuana legal for responsible adult use. And Wasserman Schultz did not come out for Amendment 2. In fact, again, she was quoted in the context of Amendment 2 as calling marijuana a gateway drug.
Now, when we talk about responsible adult use, we're basically talking about utilizing cannabis in the same aspect of alcohol, which means is once cannabis is actually legal for this, that means that the alcohol industry is going to take a big hit. And has not Congresswoman Schultz taken money from the alcohol industry?
She takes a lot of money from big alcohol, big pharma, big sugar, and big sugar sells a lot of sugar to alcohol companies as well. So she's tied into these corporate interests that had a vested interest in making sure that cannabis remains illegal.
Now, you ran against her the last time as a Democrat.
I did.
And there was a problem with the election.
Yes.
Could you just briefly go over what happened with the election?
Briefly, look, that was quite a campaign. We raised $3.8 million, but we did it in $17 contributions. 209,000 times people went online to contribute to our campaign.
Kind of like Bernie.
Very much like Bernie. And we plowed the money back into the district. We had 4 field offices, and we had an army of over 200 people knocking on doors every day. We were knocking on 10,000 to 12,000 doors a week. It might have been the biggest grassroots campaign for Congress in the country in 2016. And when you knock on that many doors, it generates a lot of data. Our data showed us winning the race, actually, at the end. And on election night, we're told we lost by 13 percentage points, which struck me as very strange. And there's, all kinds of explanations as to why that happened, but in my gut, I still looked at those field numbers. I recall what it was like on the ground at all the voting sites, early voting and election day. And as I should say, in the weeks after the outcome, I started to hear from election experts around the country, statisticians, people who analyze elections regularly. And it was a steady stream of folks who were saying that they thought the election was rigged, basically, that the vote had been flipped, that it would have been done by either hack or software manipulation. I'm not a statistician. I had no idea. I do remember the old controversies about Diebold or Diebold. So it's not as if It was beyond the realm of possibility. And I put in a public records request to inspect the ballots in a dozen precincts. The supervisor of elections of Broward County stonewalled us for 7 months. I filed a lawsuit. While the lawsuit was pending, the supervisor destroyed all of the ballots. These are felonies under state law. It violates federal criminal law as well. She admitted to it in videotaped sworn depositions, and the Florida Circuit Court granted me summary judgment in the public records case. So it's very established that they broke the law. We were not allowed to inspect the software that creates the digital scanned images. So there is no way to verify the vote. And you've got to wonder, why would somebody destroy paper ballots and commit felonies? What are they covering up? So there's a dark cloud that hangs over the results of our 2016 primary. I wrote to all of the Democratic Party officials in Broward County, in Miami-Dade, and in Tallahassee. I laid out the case, the videotape deposition and everything else, and asked them to simply join me in calling for an investigation. And I was hopeful that there would be an investigation. I didn't hear back from a single Democratic Party official. And at that point, I decided I was going to run as an independent. And I'm very glad to be running as an independent. This district has, I think, 23% of registered voters in this district are Republican. There's no way the Republican will even take second place in a three-way race. If there's any district in the entire country where an independent can win, it is right here, right now, in Florida's 23rd.
Full disclosure, I am independent. Now, it's difficult because here we are in Florida where we have closed primaries.
Yes.
So I registered as a Democrat only because of the fact if I didn't, I'd have absolutely nobody to vote for in the primaries.
Exactly.
But here we are at the general election, and we're free to vote for whoever we want to.
That's right.
And right now, I've noticed that a lot of young folks right now are registered as no party affiliation.
Nationally, they say millennials and younger, 71% of them are now no party affiliation. Nationally, all voters, 46% of them are non-party affiliation, and this is rising. So NPAs, independents, nationally now outnumber registered Democrats and registered Republicans combined. And it just shows that people are fed up with these two corrupt parties that accomplish nothing. They're not solving our problems. They're kicking the can down the road. And you know what's happening. The wealthy corporate interests keep making out like bandits, and everyone else is running in place.
And we've got to fix that system somehow. Right now we have a two-party system, and the independents, I think it's maybe their time.
I don't think it is. I know it is. And when we win this race on November 6th, I'll be the only independent in the House of Representatives. And I think this is going to inspire a lot of independent candidacies coming up.
Now, a lot of young people right now who are independents are really confused as to which way to go. Now, here on the 23rd, you've got a lot of folks who are really disillusioned. I understand that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her approval rating has gone way, way down.
Her disapproval rating in this district is about 60% now. And there's a Republican poll out there that we haven't seen yet, but I keep hearing about it. And of course, the Republicans don't want to publish it because it shows the Republican candidate fading very fast in third place. But one poll has us neck and neck with Wasserman Schultz right now.
Well, she seems to have a lot of self-confidence. I know that not too long ago, she invited Mayor Gillum to her synagogue.
Yes.
And whispered into his ear, now that you've been in a synagogue, didn't actually whisper it because two people heard it right next to her, you obviously won our district. Well, that's kind of hubris.
Well, it is hubris. And I'll tell you, 2 years ago, when I was running against Wasserman Schultz in the primary, I said that if she were to win this nomination, this primary against me, she would be an albatross around Hillary Clinton's neck in Florida. And that's exactly what happened. Every time Hillary Clinton campaigned with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it might have helped her win some votes in Broward County and in Miami-Dade. But this is a big state. Hillary Clinton could not even defeat Donald Trump in Florida with Debbie Wasserman Schultz behind her. I have little doubt that Wasserman Schultz's support might win Andrew Gillum some votes down here in a blue district and in a blue county. What I worry about is statewide. Andrew Gillum is running statewide.
Yes.
So, I would just hope that he's able to pull this out and hopefully not appear too visibly with Wasserman Schultz for his own sake.
Well, he is polling very, very well right now, and he's working very, very hard to do this. And just looking at the records, though, I've noticed that you seem to have more in common with Andrew Gillum than Debbie Wasserman Schultz does.
Far more.
In regards to developing good jobs and that minimum wage of $15 an hour, you speak about that. She does not.
I speak about it all the time. Medicare for all, both Andrew Gillum has been in the past for Medicare for all. I've been for Medicare for all for a long time. The war on drugs is a big one where Andrew Gillum and I are on the same page and Wasserman Schultz is not. I want to end this war on drugs. I want to end mass incarceration. I want to end private prisons. There are way too many private prisons in Florida. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she took money from the Correction Corporations of America, that's now known as Core Civic. It's a giant private prison company. And while she was taking money from them, she was pushing a $100 million project in her district for a private immigration detention center that would be owned by and run by the CCA, the Correction Corporations of America.
So obviously, there are more differences than there are similarities.
It's true, but listen, I think Mayor Gillum came under pressure probably, for party loyalty to appear with Wasserman Schultz for all kinds of reasons. He's running his campaign, and I was an early supporter of Andrew Gillum. I was supporting him in the primaries while Wasserman Schultz was behind another candidate. From what I hear, she certainly wasn't behind Andrew Gillum in the primaries. So, it's a whole nother race, the race for governor. My focus has really not been on the governor's race. It's been on this district, the people in this district, and it's going very well for us. I think we have a big base of support within the Democratic Party. We saw that last time. There was a huge progressive movement within the party nationally and certainly right here in South Florida. And there are an awful lot of independents in Florida that don't like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, again, with a disapproval rating of 60%. And now we're seeing Republicans coming our way. The Republicans see that I've been standing up against the Broward County Supervisor of Elections for the past 34 months now. And they respect that because they don't trust these elections here in Broward County either.
Now, you mentioned the Supervisor of Elections. I hearken all, my head just goes straight to Catherine Harris and the hanging chads. But on the other coast, here is this lady who destroyed ballots, which is a felony. And yet I saw a picture on the internet the other day of Debbie and this lady hugging and doing a selfie.
Yes, I saw the same photo.
That's kind of blatant.
It's outrageous. It's interesting. I think it's Chris Hedges. He was a reporter for the New York Times who lost his job because he was critical of the Iraq War. And Hedges said recently that the corruption has gotten so bad now in our time that it's right out in the open. And that's how it seems like here. When you destroy ballots, you admit it in videotape depositions, there's so far no criminal repercussions. And then you appear publicly again with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, whose election you might have helped rig. That seems to be pretty blatant, pretty out in the open.
Well, for those historians among us, and I'm probably one of the few that actually goes to Congress.gov and actually counts things, but we have had 172 bills that have been pro-cannabis since 1971, and only 3 of them have ever gotten out of committee. And that is because we've never really gotten a good block of congressmen who've actually pushed it to move it forward.
Right.
And yet here we have Florida, which has a huge amount of congressional districts compared to other states. I mean, we have some great supporters in Colorado and Oregon who have only a couple of congressmen.
Right.
But here, how many congressional districts do we have here in Florida?
What is it, in the high 20s now?
Yeah, we could have a huge block of pro-cannabis support if we can get all the pro-cannabis candidates out there. And you are one of the pro-cannabis people who could go to Washington, D.C. and make it happen and work with folks along with Matt Gaetz and with Darren Soto and with the other people who are actually moving these bills forward.
I think the stars are going to line up in the months and years to come. I really do. This is no longer a Democratic versus a Republican issue. You're starting to see Republicans sort of beginning to come around with cannabis, I think. Of course, the former Speaker, John Boehner, is one. But you got the Rand Pauls, you've got the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. And it makes sense. You look at the surveys, most Americans have tried cannabis. So why should we be putting people in prison for using the same drug that most Americans have tried, that the last 3 or 4 American presidents apparently have used at various points in their lives. It's just utter hypocrisy.
As a law professor, you have seen how the laws have changed over the last few years in regards to states versus federal.
Yes.
Do you see a possibility of a federal way of purging the records of people who have gotten felonies or for possession of small amounts?
Breaking the box, I think they call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I would be pushing for that, no doubt. And look, what would I do if and when elected? I would want cannabis no longer on the Schedule 1 of dangerous and controlled substances. And I think there's a lot of support for that position in this country. And that would make it a lot easier for states to actually act as laboratories of change. I'm for restoring voting rights. And I used to be a law professor at the University of New Mexico, and I was part of a big grassroots movement at the time that in the course of 3 months got legislation passed, signed by a governor, it was a Republican governor, Gary Johnson at the time.
Yes.
And it restored voting rights to ex-felons. Most of them had lost their voting rights and had been convicted of felonies for nonviolent drug offenses. Right now in Florida, that's on the ballot for voters. That's Amendment 4, I believe. And our campaign has been out there advocating for Amendment 4. We're going to continue to advocate for it. And I'd like to see at the federal level to break this box, that people should not be stigmatized for the rest of their lives for nonviolent drug offenses.
Well, okay, so guys, so here is the ask. If you are in Congressional District 23, which is south of Fort Lauderdale, right, in the Hollywood area?
It is. Let me just briefly say, it starts along the beach at Surfside, it comes north through Sunny Isles, Hallandale, Hollywood Beach, Dania Beach. It then turns west and goes through Davie, Plantation, Sunrise, Weston, Pembroke Pines, Hollywood, Aventura. It's a big district, but if folks are in that district, we need their votes. We need folks to step up and volunteer their time. Be poll watchers. We need folks to come on election day and in early voting. We've got the issues on our side. We really have the people coming our way. We got to make sure this election is not stolen. And we need small contributions online. This is a David versus Goliath. Wasserman Schultz has raised millions of dollars this cycle. We haven't raised that kind of money. We've been throttled on Facebook. We've been shadow banned on social media. There's a news media blackout against us. They've done everything they can to destroy this campaign, and it keeps moving forward and picking up steam.
And the place to go on the internet to go ahead and give donations is?
TimCanova.com.
That's simple enough.
Yes.
And so if you do have somebody who lives in this area, go ahead and give them a call. If you live in the area, go to the polls and bring 10 people with you that you know of who are independent or Democrat or Republican and are tired of the system the way it is. And if you want to see something move forward in regards to cannabis, this is the guy we're talking about right now. So this is Gary Stein from Clarity PAC giving you some clarity on what we can do in Congress federally as we move forward. It's time. It's not a matter of Democrat or Republican. It's a matter of the issues. And when the issues are right, then you got the right guy. And I think we got it right this time. Good night, guys.
Thank you, Gary.